What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
Our guest today, Mohammad Anwar, has had an amazing journey. I talked to him about the fact that he started his company up, Softway, at the age of 20 years old. And of course, today he's an elderly grandfather of 40. But this journey he's been on has been amazing in the fact of how much he's pushed the foundation of technology, but married the human heart around it. And so I've really been looking forward, Mohammed, to get a chance to spend a few minutes with you. So welcome to Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and have this discussion with you.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about I want to start at the foundation. Tell us a little bit about Softway, because that's a pivotal part of your journey. It's been sort of your foundation. What is Softway today?
So Softway is a technology solutions provider accompanied with communication services. So I started the company 20 years ago when I was 20 years old out of my college dorm. And we started off just building e-commerce websites. But through the iterations, today we offer a lot of cloud transformation services where we build a lot of applications on the cloud or help migrate, legacy solutions to the cloud. But also accompany that with great communication, because most technology solutions don't succeed just by the technology itself. You still have to get it to be used, adopted by the organization. So we offer a complementary service to that with video and other communication services to help embrace these products and solutions we build.
Yeah, well, if you look at this, I mean, from a dorm room, you and Michael Dell, right? Started from a dorm room. How fast did you scale?
Oh, we scaled pretty fast. I will tell you within about 10 years of sorry, I thought I lost you there.
No.
Within about 10 years of running the business, we were over 300 employees. I had clients from all different Fortune 500 companies. And I personally believed I had hit the pinnacle of success. I was only 30 years old and I was driving my fancy cars, flying planes across Texas, and I was really leading the life of an entrepreneur and living my American dream, right? Especially as an immigrant to this country. So we scaled pretty fast. I would say, 10 years, 300 employees, multi-million-dollar revenue, and living the life.
Yeah. What was your family's response to this growth that you went through? Did you come from a family that was also entrepreneurial?
No, my family is from India. And so my father grew up in a lot of, hardships and poverty. And so he was an immigrant worker to Saudi Arabia. He moved to Saudi Arabia to work for an oil and gas company as a machinist. And I was born in Saudi Arabia and I lived there for 14 years with my parents and my family. And then I moved to the US when I was 15 years old to finish up my high school. So I come from an immigrant working family to the Middle East. And then I immigrated to the US to go to high school. And my dad put me in a boarding school in Kansas, in a Catholic boarding school. And he said, "You'll be a good boy there, so go to school there." I trust that school to keep you in check. So I finished up my high school and then I moved to Houston to go to University of Houston, just so that I could stay with my family. At the time, my sister and brother were living in Houston pursuing their careers. So I moved in with my sister for a while because I wanted home cooked meals and I didn't want to stay in dorms anymore.
Smart man.
Yes, yes. But then eventually I did move out of my sister's house again into
Yeah.
my own place and
Yeah,
stuff. But
especially as you're launching Softway, and it jumped up to such a fast start. It sounds like it was a fairly low overhead, high revenue producing type of operation at the beginning, but I think that changed as you began to
yes,
scale, where the revenue continued to climb, but also your cost structures, of course, continue to climb. When you and I talked before, when we first met, you talked about this rocket ship that you were on,
mhm,
but then the wheels fell off the bus.
yeah.
What was the epic? The epoch, or the cataclysmic event that really slammed you?
Sure. So as I was on this journey, and I basically had reached this point of success, right, at the age of 30, I began to see a decline in my business. And particularly 2015, 2016, I was on the verge of bankruptcy. Our business was hemorrhaging cash, and I was losing people left and right. People were quitting left and right. And I was losing contracts. I was losing a lot of revenue. And at that moment in time, initially, my whole thought was, well, this is my customers, this is the industry, this is the economy, this is my employees. Like, I would blame anything and everything around me, but I failed to look at myself. And eventually, through a moment of introspection that surprisingly I had, because of witnessing a football game, led me to realize that this was all my fault. This is my selfish behaviors, my greed for money had led me to almost destroying my company.
Okay, you got to
And
stop
it
there for a
was,
second. What was it about the football game that turned out to be a mirror for you? Was this American
yes,
football or European football?
yeah,
I got
no, this is American
okay.
football. And so I will start by saying, in October of 2015, because I was on the verge of bankruptcy, and in order to keep the company from failing, I had to take the tough decision to lay off people. And I laid off almost 100 employees.
Mm.
But I did so in a very inhumane and dehumanizing manner. I'm still reeling in from it, but it wasn't a pleasant experience. I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about the people who were let go. And so at that point in time, I was at the lowest point in my life. I did not know if I was going to recover from this. I basically started questioning myself if I was even fit to be a CEO. I really didn't know if the doors of Softway would remain open at that point in time. So at this lowest point of my life, 2 weeks after the layoffs, I had the opportunity to go to a football game for my alma mater, University of Houston. I received tickets from my customer, and so I decided to go to the game with my brother. And I was really looking forward to this game because I was like, I needed something positive in my life. I needed to really distract myself from the realities, and I wanted to go to this game. And I'm a big time University of Houston football
Go
fan.
Coug.
Yes, thank you. And U of H in this year, we're having a Cinderella season. Up until that point in time, we were 9-0, and this would have been our 10th game, and we were ranked, and we're playing another ranked opponent of University of Memphis Tigers. And I was really looking forward to it, and looking forward to a 10th victory. But as I was sitting in the stadium watching the game, going to the fourth quarter, we were losing by 20 points, playing with a third string quarterback, and ESPN Game Tracker was predicting we had 0.1% chance to win that night. And in that moment in time, I debated whether I should even stay any longer. I wanted to leave just to bolt the traffic and get out of the stadium and go home because we're gonna lose. But something inside of me told me, stay back, be there to support your team, be there till the end. And I'm glad I stayed because I got to witness one of the best comebacks for University of Houston football that night. We ended up winning 35-34 with 30 seconds left in the fourth quarter. And when I saw that win, I got incredibly rejuvenated and excited, so much so that I started to see Softway through the eyes of Houston Cougar football team. I started to envision our own fourth quarter financial comeback. And I wanted to go back on Monday and not give up. I wanted to keep fighting. I wanted to make sure I do whatever it takes to have Softway survive. And so Monday comes along, I go into the office all pumped up and excited, and I log on to Facebook Live to see the press conference of then coach Tom Herman, who was a rookie head coach first season, talk to the reporters. And I was really inspired by him thus far because of how he had turned around the football program. So as I was watching this press conference, one of the reporters asked him, hey, what had led to the success of the football team that night and the resilience and the comeback? And it's his answer that changed my perspective of life. It was a life-changing moment for me. His response was that it was love. It was the love and support the players had for one another that led them to win that night. And he began to expound on it to say, this is not the love you dog or love you bro kind of love. This is the genuine, you have my heart in your hand kind of love. And when you have players that go on the field that don't fight for themselves, but fight for the brothers next to you, that's the kind of love that wins championship level games. And that's how you build championship level teams, not just by filling it up with all-star players, but by building an all-star team that cares and loves one another. And so as he was saying all of this, my brain was just exploding. I was like, okay, I did not expect that answer. But at the same time, because I was so inspired by that victory and by Tom Herman, I wanted to start thinking about myself and our team. And I began to ask this introspective questions. Do I love my team? And do I care for my team the way Coach Tom Herman is describing? And the answer was a resounding no. I didn't care for my team or love my team the way Coach Herman described his culture. And that's when I committed to myself that I wanted to, I strive to become a leader who is empathetic, trusting, vulnerable, and puts the needs of others before myself, but also create a circle of safety where people can be empowered to learn, grow, make mistakes, forgive one another, thereby becoming a team of resilience and success. So I've been on that journey. I still have not reached the destination because it is a journey with no destination. It is in fact a permanent state of transformation.
Yeah, when you talk about this journey that you've been on, the term servant leadership has been out for a long time. Almost so that it's now losing its, it's kind of like when the word quality came out, when Deming started talking about quality in the 60s, big revolutionary thing. Within 10 years, the word quality morphed down. And then, of course, partnership. We're going to partner with our clients. We're going to partner with our people. Well, that started coming down. With this whole thing about servant leadership, you actually went and chronicled this process with both not just a mindset, but you actually wrote a book. That's and I was fascinated by the title, which is Love as a Business Strategy. And when I think of an IT, technology-based company, I'm really pressed hard to come up with any other technology company I've ever come into contact with that love is part of your mission statement. But your book actually, if you read it, it actually is the definition of servant leadership, isn't it?
Totally. I believe that when I encountered this culture of love concept through Tom Herman, a few weeks after that, I had the opportunity to go to Southwest Airlines headquarters in Love Field in Dallas. And as I was walking through the headquarters, I saw this big sign that said servant leadership. And believe it or not, I had not heard of those two words come together in that way ever in my life. I had heard of servants and leaders, especially from the context of my Indian background, because in India, you have huge dividing classes.
But the caste system is really defined, isn't it?
Caste system, but even beyond that, they have classes. That's classism, which is like lower levels of class and higher levels of class of society. And the lowest levels of class people are servants, and the leaders sit in the highest level of society, and the servants serve the leaders. And that is how I understood servants and leaders. And so when I saw these two terms come together, I was like, wait a minute, this is so contrary to what I understand. How can a leader be a servant? And so I began to do research on it immediately when I got back home that night, and I learned of servant leadership. And I saw that servant leadership, the real DNA of it was really about love and loving people and loving, caring for others and being compassionate of others. So I saw this connection between the cultural love that Tom Herman was talking about and servant leadership. And I decided that I needed to be that type of a leader to really live out the values of love. And so I began to try and practice that in my
So
company.
what are the
Yeah.
say two things that you did to when you started rolling this out? There were like one or two things that were the first steps that you took when you moved in that direction?
Yeah. So my team reminded me that after the football game, the first thing I did, which scared the hell out of everybody, was I told everybody, I love you all. And they were like, what is wrong with Mohammed? They
That's
all
fine.
rolled
So,
their eyes.
yeah, what was that tailgate like?
It was not fun. People gave me the weird looks when I said that at our town hall. But no, I think the first steps, things that I needed to do, which I realized was I need to just work on myself. I needed to really look at my behaviors and start putting into practice some changes to how I treated people. Because up until that point in time, I used to belittle people, humiliate them, put them out on the spot, even verbally attack and yell at people at times in public. And my behaviors were very condescending towards the team. And so I needed to really work on myself. So some of the things I had to do to begin with was be able to just find ways to do things for others with no expectations in return. So I needed to find ways to be selfless without being outlandish and being recognized as being selfless. So some of the small things I would do to begin with to work on myself was my wife would pack me lunch every day. And she's a very good cook. So I would just walk the bullpen area around lunchtime and just offer up for anybody to share my food. And people initially looked weird at me, like, what is wrong with him? But because the food was so good, and when the first person took up the offer, it quickly spread out that, oh, Mohammed's wife cooks really good food. So every day, the first thing I would do during lunchtime is walk the halls and see if anybody wanted to have some of my food. And I would take out a portion first for the person who was willing to try my wife's food. And then whatever was left is what I would eat. And that was my first practice to part ways with something that in my past I wouldn't have. And I started to do small things like that just to work on myself, to be selfless, and put the needs of others before myself. So the other thing I did was I moved into the bullpen area. I vacated the largest corner office that was there in our 20,000 square foot office space, and I was like, I'm going to move out to the bullpen area, and I'm going to sit in the bullpen area or stand. We had stand-up desks too, to be there to serve others, because I don't want people to make the walk through those hallways to come to my corner office, which is intimidating itself, and say, oh, I have an open door policy, just come on in whenever you want. I was like, no, if I need to be there to serve others, I need to be out where they are. So I vacated my office and I moved into the bullpen area. But when I first moved into the bullpen area, people told me many years later, when they started to trust me again, was like, Mohammed, we were scared as hell when you moved into the bullpen area, because we thought you were moving in just to keep an eye on us and make sure we got the work done. But my intent was clearly, I just wanted to be there to walk up to the people and see how I could help them, to put their needs before myself.
Yeah, this whole concept of being the perception of people wrestles with the concept of, are you here to criticize me? Are you here to connect with me? And that there's a mindset shift from a leadership standpoint, especially in today's culture, is that we don't increase performance through criticism. We increase performance through connection. And that's connecting both mind as well as heart, is what you're talking about.
Totally agree. And I don't blame them, right? Because up until that point in time, if I walked the hallways, it was to yell at someone. So they were like extremely scared of me. So little things like that. There are a lot of things that I started to do that was very minor, but the intent behind it was I needed to sacrifice my needs for the needs of others. And
Yeah.
that
So
was the
when, yeah.
baseline of servant leadership.
Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.